Let's talk about Joker 2019. Joker 2019 is about the world that we live in right now. And Joker 2, Joker Folle en Droit, is Todd Phillips' apology to the far left because those lunatics thought that he was making excuses for bad men that kill. That's not who Arthur Fleck is, and this is not the message Todd was trying to say with Joker 2019. Because Arthur Fleck could be me, you, or her. It's always funny to me how the far left, the ultra left, see incels as just men. The truth is, there's as many female incels as there is males. How do you explain Myra Hindley or Baby P's mother? Or all the horrible women out there who have done horrible things equal to men, right? But the ultra left don't really want to talk about that. They're uncomfortable about that. They just want to push propaganda about problematic men. Arthur Fleck at the first half of this movie is an aspirational character. He aspires to be like his hero, Murray. He has this fantasy while he's watching Murray's show that he's there in the audience and Murray calls him to the stage and they get on and Murray even says, "You're like the son I never had." And it's something that so many of us have done, fantasize about meeting our heroes and fantasizing that, we have this brilliant positive conversation. Oh, come on, we've all done it, right? Nothing wrong with it. So the first half of the movie, Arthur is this aspirational guy trying to look after his sick mother, even though he's suffering with mental health problems. He goes to see a counselor. But then as we get to the next part of the movie, the counselor tells him that the funding for the medication he gets ends. Then, that's when Arthur begins to spiral. He has the incident on the train with the men, with the bullies who he ends up killing. That is Arthur Fleck's awakening. He's no longer an aspirational character anymore. He has been brought back down to our level, to this horrible, ugly society's level. This is what we do to good people. Because make no mistake, Arthur Fleck, despite his mental health deficiencies, his heart is in the right place and we bring him down to our ugly level. It happens all the time. When you're young, you're naive and aspirational and you see the world through one type of lens. And then as you get older, we become more cynical and hateful and we're brought down to the level of this society. And this is what happens to Arthur Fleck. But then he has an even bigger awakening. He watches his hero's show again, Murray's show, where Murray shows a clip of Arthur doing stand-up and Murray mocks him. He destroys him. Now, Phoenix does a wonderful piece of acting here. And I always tell my amateur dramatic society about this scene, and we always watch it when I want to get them in that zone. He's just watching that TV, but you see the face change. From this aspirational, happy guy with pride in his face, he's got an expression of pride. When Murray starts to diss him, you see the anger and the disdain in Phoenix's face. It's absolutely beautiful acting, but it takes focus. It takes a lot of takes. It's not something you can just click your fingers to do. But that is the real awakening of the movie. All of a sudden, from a bright, positive, young guy who's got the world on his shoulders looking after his ill mum. He's mentally ill. He hasn't got his medication anymore, but he's trying. But the incident on the train has changed everything. All of a sudden, he's been brought down to our ugly, sick, distasteful, cynical level. He's not aspirational anymore. And that bit on the stairs, but actually, no, let's stop there. That bit in the bathroom, that's the bit. That's the awakening as well. But then he goes on the stairs. This is when Arthur is finally free to be who he always was. He was hiding it from the world. But at that moment, he doesn't give a flying fuck anymore. This is me. I don't care. I'm letting it out. I'm letting myself out. I'm letting the ugliness out. I'm not holding it in anymore. And this is what happens here. We bring people down to our level. If you keep on kicking someone and pushing them, what's going to happen? They're going to push right back, especially if they're mentally unbalanced. And this is why we've always got to be careful how we treat other people, because you never know who you're messing with. Society didn't really know who Arthur Fleck was, but they did in the end. And I always remember that moment when he's standing on the police car. And I love the music. That score's amazing, by the way. And that's the revelation moment, the chaos, the anarchy. He becomes this folk hero. And this felt very uncomfortable to ultra-left Hollywood and California, because it really put a strong message. What if the people in the real world see this and have an awakening too? What if they realise that they really don't have to follow these bullshit rules, laws and regulations? What if there's anarchy and we no longer have control? So I don't really know what Todd Phillips' motivation in telling this story. I do believe there was a lot of kind of commentary on social media and how ugly and horrible social media is. I've never seen a scene as compelling and as brutal and emotionally devastating as the interview Murray gives to Arthur. And then Arthur starts to get very angry about the world that we live in. It's an ugly world. Everyone's so mean. They don't even see me, right? They don't even see me. But they see me now, right? You get what you deserve. That moment is so brutal, compelling, and shocking. It's the most shocking moment in cinematic history. One of them, right? Obviously, Seven exists, the ending of Seven. So yeah, that's pretty shocking as well, right? There's lots of shocking moments in cinema, but that is one of them for sure. Now, all of a sudden, people felt very, very uncomfortable about this movie. Very uncomfortable. Because back in the 90s and the 80s, the 60s and 70s, you could easily make a movie like this. You know, Taxi Driver is a 70s movie, right? Or is it an 80s movie, right? The story of Travis Bickle. But you put a character like that in 2019, when everyone's a little bit nervous and a little bit easily offended and they don't like the truth being faced to them on a cinema screen, then things become very, very different. I think about the comic book movie trend, and I think the pinnacle of that trend was Joker 2019. It was the final moment of the trend, because they're not a trend anymore. You can't just make any old shit and put it on the screen anymore, right? We know that. We know that. Look at the pressure Superman's under. Can that movie make money? Will it? You know, Warner Brothers Discovery have had their credit rating reduced. Everything, you know, is relying on the House of L. Superman this year and Supergirl next year. Can they save WBD? I have no idea. So really, what Todd Phillips has done here, he's gone, right, I am an auteur. I want to make a movie about a person, about society, but I can't just make any movie, because these damn comic book movies are so popular. Unless it's a comic book movie, no one's taking any damn notice. So what's he do? Let me take a character from DC and let me tell my story about the society we live in. So of course, he picks Joker, which is genius. He's probably one of the most popular characters in any comic book. He may be the most popular character in any comic book. I've always said it. Batman 89, the Joker's in it, successful. The Dark Knight, the Joker's in it, successful. Joker 2019, successful, the Joker's in it. Even the Suicide Squad movie of 2016 has a lot of fans because Joker and Harley in it. And we, for the first time in live action, actually see elements of that dysfunctional romance that everybody loves. But of course, woke Hollywood now have made Harley some kind of, ultra-left feminist. I mean, if you see some of the messaging in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, it's already there. Personally, I prefer her in David Ayer's movie, even though that really isn't David Ayer's movie. I'd love to see what he did with Joker and Harley in his own cut. Release the Ayer cut. But yeah, so this movie is, it's Todd Phillips saying, right, I'm frustrated. I want to make a movie that people go and see, but people just want to see these damn CBMs. Why don't I make a CBM? But I'm not going to make a traditional CBM. I'm going to take a character and, and paint him in the way I want to paint him. And it really was such a compelling film. I remember going to see it in the cinema. It's one of those moments where you sit there and you're like this. Oh my God, what have I just seen? But not for the wrong reasons. Because as I say, this is not an apology for bad men who do bad things and kill. This is a look at all of us. Whether your name's Nancy or Nate, this movie is about you. Because when you were born, you grew up as a kid. You grew up to be naive and aspirational, as I said on the top of the show. But then this world drags you down. This world dragged Arthur Fleck down and destroyed him. And then he finds out that his mother stood by while he was abused and tortured. The guy never stood a chance. Again, you could see this as excuse making. But when you look at the revelations of his life, but it's interesting because we don't know what's fact and what's all in Arthur's mind as well. So that's another thing that's very interesting about the film. And the fascinating thing about Joker 2, Joker Folie à Deux, I really enjoyed that film, as I told you in my review, was it last year? But it's certainly an apology to woke Hollywood. How dare you make a film about a man? But I tell you something, if that film is called Harley 2019, right? If that's Harley 2019, right? And they do exactly the same thing with Harley, the ultra left are gonna fucking love it, and the woman playing Harley Quinn, whoever that's gonna be, would win Oscars and praise, and they'd probably make her a director in her next movie, right? Because women today are the cake and eat it gender, and men are the gender that keeps on being reviled. And it's just the reaction, they were telling people that if you go and see this in cinemas, you could end up dying. That, some crazy guy could come in and kill you, right? That's what they were saying. They were so desperate to make this movie fail because to them it sold the wrong messaging. When in reality, it's the ultra left that are selling the wrong messaging. In my opinion, by the way. Because the ultra left and the ultra right all hate a group of people. The ultra left hates straight white males and the ultra right hate everybody else, right? So I wouldn't be singing from either of those hymn sheets if I were you. I certainly don't. I'm politically homeless. I think everyone should be politically homeless these days, because if you believe in these ultra nut jobs, whatever side of the window they're staring at you at, you're part of that ultra nut job mentality. And you go from being an aspirational person to a horrible, disgusting person with just hate in your heart. This is what happens to Arthur Fleck. He's dragged down to our level. So it really is. When people show me a Man of Steel clip and say, whoa, this is cinema, and don't get me wrong, I love Man of Steel. No. Joker 2019 is fucking cinema. That's what cinema should be. It's such a hardcore movie. And as I say, every time I finish watching it, I sit there and I learn something new about the human condition. Just like when I saw Dead Ringers by David Cronenberg starring Jeremy Irons, or when I saw Falling Down, directed by Joel Schumacher starring Michael Douglas. You learn something about yourself and the human condition. And these are the most beautiful movies. You couldn't do this with a Marvel movie. I think that Joker 2019 is probably the best, the greatest comic book movie ever made.